Shalom. Let's move ahead now with Psalm 129, a song of ascents. Since my youth they have often assailed me. Let Israel now declare. Since my youth they have often assailed me, but they have never overcome me. Plowmen plowed across my back. They made long furrows. The Lord, the righteous one, has snapped the cords of the wicked. Let all who hate Zion fall back in disgrace. Let them be like grass on roofs that fade before it can be pulled up, that affords no handful for the reaper, no armful for the gatherer of sheaves, no exchange with passers-by. Quote, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you by the name of the Lord. End quote. Since my youth they have often assailed me. Let Israel now declare. That's how the psalmist begins. He is making reference to the history of the people Israel. Remember that the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, suffered harshly under bondage inflicted upon them by Pharaoh and their taskmasters. And as soon as they left Egypt in the Exodus story, they were almost immediately attacked by the Amalekites, who, according to the book of Exodus, crept up upon them in a sneak attack and first attacked all those who were weak and infirm and elderly. Amalek attacked the Israelites completely unprovoked. And so the psalmist may be implying that since the beginnings of the Jewish people, enemies have assailed us and attacked us since the youth of our people, our early days, and it has gone on ever since. Now, it would be easy to use this opportunity to reflect on the evils of anti-Semitism and the fact that even in its most extreme manifestation under Hitler and Nazism, when approximately 6 million Jews and 5 million others were slaughtered and killed, it would be easy to use this psalm as an opportunity to rail against anti-Semitism and to also remind ourselves that in spite of all the efforts of the anti-Semites and racists of the past, they have never completely prevailed because, according to the words of the psalm, the Lord, the righteous one, has snapped the cords of the wicked. And so while they have won battles, they have never completely won the war because Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people, survives, the state of Israel survives, and God willing, flourishes, and we continue to hope and pray for the safety and security of Jewish people throughout the world, here in the United States, and especially in Europe, where Jews are so often threatened and so often persecuted against. And so while it would be easy to use my 10 minutes or so here to concentrate on the evils of anti-Semitism, I would rather shift the focus and remind us, when we talk about, since my youth they have often assailed me, what would it be like if we put ourselves in the shoes of a black person in America? What would it be like to imagine how the persecution, the inequities of society have assailed black people in our country since the days of their youth? How often, even up until this very day, when we pride ourselves on being a modern society, a great superpower in the world, a leader and a beacon in the world, how can it be that even now there are so many inequities that persist between Caucasian Americans and and blacks and Latinos and Asians and people of other ethnic backgrounds and immigrants as well. Since my youth, they have often assailed me. Is it possible to really, really put ourselves in the shoes and to get into the heads of black families in our land who are forced to send their children to schools that are underfunded and provide inferior education when compared to schools in predominantly white districts? Since my youth, they have often assailed me. From the very beginnings of a black person's life in this country, and that also goes for many others in minority groups. From the very beginnings of their life, many of them are not given the same chances as we white Americans are. In urban situations, they are forced to grow up in environments racked with violence, abuse in the home, drugs and alcohol, and all sorts of other societal ills that happen in those milieus. And so from the very start, they are at a disadvantage. And it becomes so difficult for people in that kind of situation to rise up and to extricate themselves from that kind of hopeless and despairing environment and to achieve a measure of success and prosperity, at least the way that is defined in American standards and American values. But we have to remember that the psalmist says, even though they have even though they have assailed us, they have not and will never overcome us. Think of the great spiritual "we shall overcome" that has been a hallmark of the African American community for so many years. We shall overcome. A people and a group who time and time again were vanquished by all those who had the privileges, but dreamed of the day when they would overcome all of these disadvantages and all of the racism and all of the inequities in our society, so that everything would be set aright in our country. The psalmist says, we have been assailed from our youth, but never completely overcome. And I know that there have been many times when minority groups in our land have felt truly overcome and have felt that they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance to succeed in our society. But God willing, they will never completely be overcome, because God willing, the forces of truth and justice and right and righteousness and equity will eventually prevail. God willing, that will happen much sooner rather than later. The best time is now, and it is up to all of us who enjoy the privileges of being born into a certain socioeconomic and ethnic class or group in our country. It's time for us to open our consciousness and awareness, put ourselves in the shoes of those who do not enjoy the same opportunities that we do, and do our very best to speak out on their behalf. Election Day is less than a month away. Everybody needs to make the commitment to vote, to have a say in our political process, and to do our utmost to fight inequity, intolerance, and racism in our land. Thank you.